My name is Carol, and I'm with Fulfillment Fund, and we have Dave Stewart, who's with us with Riot Games. And so you guys are in for a treat.
Thanks, Carol, and it's really nice to be able to join the Fulfillment Fund today and to talk a little bit about what we do at Riot Games. I work in esports at Riot Games, and I've been with Riot for almost 10 years, and it's really exciting for me because it's a blend of two of my real passions in video games and sports. We do esports events all over the globe. We do League of Legends esports, Valorant esports, Wild Rift esports. We do it in Europe, in Asia, in the Americas, and thousands and thousands of fans come out to watch our esports, and millions watch online. And it's really been quite a journey to see video game players as professional athletes.
And also, I would love to kind of delve into how you got into that, because it didn't sound like, looking at your bio, that you started off that way. And that's what I think we like our students to find out, that just because you go to college for one thing doesn't end up being your passion, and you can completely change directions later on. So can you start off by telling us what you started off with? Where did you go to college, and what were you majoring in?
Yeah, I majored in English at UCLA a very long time ago. But I went to school at UCLA and studied English. And the thing that I always loved was stories. And so I loved studying literature, and I loved telling stories, and I loved like writing. And so I wanted to be a storyteller. And even though my career has gone, on a kind of wide-ranging journey, storytelling has always been the basic core of what I do. When I left UCLA, I actually went into school teaching. I was a school teacher at a school in South Los Angeles called John Muir Middle School. It initially was John Muir Junior High when I joined. And then 2 years in, it changed to a middle school. And for 6 years, I taught school there. I taught English, and I taught journalism, and I taught drama. And it was a really great experience. But while I was doing that, I also knew that there were other things that I wanted to do. And I had a passion for sports and wanted to do sports storytelling. And so while I was teaching, I did an internship at ABC7, the local ABC, in their sports department, and kind of learned some of the craft techniques of how to do television storytelling. And from there, I got a job at Fox Sports. I kind of sent them some emails and got some interviews, and was able to get my foot in the door as a part-time writer. And I started at Fox Sports, and eventually worked my way up to being a show producer, and produced shows for Fox Sports, much like ESPN Sports Center, but it was Fox Sports version, covering Super Bowls and World Series and NBA championships, and really all sports coverage. After I was at Fox Sports, I left and went to Warner Brothers, where I worked in a development department, where I did comedy and entertainment and travel shows, and trend shows, almost for 10 years at Warner Brothers. And then some friends of mine were working at Riot Games at the time, and I really didn't know anything about Riot or esports or what was going on in that space. But they told me, Dave, you'd really love this over here. It's amazing. You love sports, you love video games. This would be a great place for you. And I had some interviews with some people at Riot, and it just seemed so exciting to me about this new space that had unlimited potential of this audience that loved video games, that loved seeing their games being played at the highest level. And the audiences and the fan communities around esports was very fascinating for me. So I joined Riot towards the end of 2013. I started producing shows for League of Legends for Riot, because my sports broadcast background, I think, was appealing to Riot. They wanted some professional sports experts to come in. And so now I've been at Riot for almost 10 years. It's been a really wild journey where I've produced video game tournaments in some of the biggest sports venues in the world. Madison Square Garden, Staples Center, the Bird's Nest, which is the Olympic venue in Beijing, China, soccer stadiums with 40,000 fans coming to watch players play video games, and millions of viewers online. And it's been an incredible journey, and one that always kind of excites me and challenges me on a daily basis. And I really get to work with a ton of talented people. It's very rare that I ever go into a room and I think that I'm the smartest person in the room. I'm so inspired about the people that I work with, and just get to be taught and enlightened by people that I work with. And then as I've gone on, I've kind of maneuvered around, and eventually I've become a vice president of what we call content services, and that is all of our live events, our broadcasts, our production plans, media management, and several other areas for esports. And so that's where I am today, kind of 10 years into the journey with Riot Games. And it's a pretty awesome job that I get to work with a lot of talented people and get to do really fun and creative things.
It sounds amazing, and it's an amazing journey too, from where you started to where you are now. Is there any sort of common skills that you think that you have, that you've been able to utilize from the time you graduated from UCLA and became a teacher until where you are now, that things that obviously with time things develop differently, and different skills you enjoy more than others? But if you are looking for a job,
Yeah.
especially in what you're doing now, is there any sort of skills that you can see a fine line for?
Yeah, I think that two of the things that really, you know, are represented in people that I like to work with, and I think have also been, things that have helped me work with others, are communication and collaboration. I think that you need to be able to communicate both directions, to be able to be direct and tell people, what you think, and how you think problems should be approached, but also be able to listen and be able to take feedback and be able to take coaching without being sad or sensitive about it. If someone says, hey, you can do better in an area, I think often, and I think I even felt this earlier in my career, where it's like, I'm not doing good enough. Wham. But like, really, someone's trying to help you get better. Like, try to eliminate the sensitivity of that and really focus on the parts of it that, oh, I can be better in this way if I do these things. And so collaboration and communication and really teamwork are the things that really jump out to me. I think a lot of times we say things like we value craft, or we value culture over craft, because you can be really, really talented at something, but if you're not great to work with, most often people would rather work with people who are good to collaborate with and have good teamwork, than people that are necessarily the best, but are challenging to work with. And so being a good teammate, being a good partner, focusing on a goal together rather than focusing on, oneself, I think are really important qualities that we look for when we're hiring, but also like even not just the getting the job, but of doing a job well, is really, really important.
You think you've been lucky enough to work with big companies. Do you think that those same skills apply to small companies as well as large companies?
Yeah, I think it's even more important at small companies, because at small companies it's harder to hide. Like if it's a team of 5 and someone's not a good teammate, it really stands out. Whereas if you're at a company of 3,000, you might be able to not be a great teammate and
Right.
nobody notices for a while. But I think teamwork, and having common goals that everyone is working towards the same thing, is really, really important. So I think it's a trait that will be valuable to, individuals at all levels.
That's great. That's great advice. Now that you're at Riot Games, I'm sure that's what everybody is excited to hear about. What kind of talent do you look for when you're looking to hire a position? Whether it be somebody coming right out of college or even someone that's seasoned few years later.
Yeah. I think that it's a good question. We do various interviews when you're coming in, and some of it is culture and values, and making sure that it's really about attaching passion from a candidate to a role, because being passionate about what you do is really important. There's the saying that if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think like finding things that you love to do is really, really important. And so we definitely look for craft skills, and if it's a writing position, we want to see that someone can write. And if it's a engineering position, we want to make sure that the person has engineering craft. But just as important as craft is like alignment and passion and dedication and hard work. And then some of those softer skills like communication, collaboration, teamwork. I think usually if you find yourself saying, I did this, I win, I do things, it's not as good as if you're thinking about it like, look what we can do. I'm at a here I go with five, but I'm at a manager level position where I have, a lot of teammates reporting to me, but I always try to look at it like my teammates, not my, like a boss and not the boss. Like, I think like if you have a mentality of we're all in something together, we're all working together, and you work to get alignment and make sure that people agree about a mission, then everybody will be going towards that direction. And I think it's something that's really, really important.
That's great advice. You're just giving wonderful advice that we all can, regardless of the position or how many and what area and industry. It's very important, regardless. Is there a major that you'd suggest if somebody wanted to work in your field to go into? Again, we change majors as we go, but when the high school students might think about going into right now.
Yeah, it's a great question, but I think at certain companies there are just so many, like Riot Games, you could major in almost anything, and there's a place for you in Riot Games, because the teams that I work with, there are engineers that should be, majoring in engineering or coding or the math sciences, and then there are broadcast producers who should be majoring potentially in communications or writing or something like that. There are communications specialists and social media managers. There are all kinds of roles, and so I think when you're choosing a major, it's important to like have a major that you're passionate about and you think is a field that you love, but also know that very few people that I work with, that especially that are maybe of my age demographic, that have been in the professional workforce for 30 20 30 years plus, it's a real journey that isn't linear. It's not like, then I did step one, then I did step two, then I did step three. I was a school teacher teaching students how to write. Then I was writing sports stories, which was very different than teaching. And then I was producing shows, and it was different. And all of it was an English major, and it really wasn't the English, the major, that was the core of how I got where I got. Although it did develop a lot of the communication skills, writing skills, like sometimes you're just writing emails, but as long as like it's getting everybody to, be aligned and be working towards the same thing, those can be as important as anything else.
That's great. That's very true. One of the things you also said about when you heard about I think it was the Riot Games, you heard it through a connection. So is
Mhm.
networking something that's important in not just your field, but any field,
It really
especially yours?
is. Yeah, it really is. But I would like the best networking that you'll ever be able to do is actually working with people. And that might seem challenging of like, well, how do you get your foot in the door and how do you start doing that? But there's there's the interview process where you're trying to show how good you can be at something. But then
Mm,
there's the job process where on a daily basis, you're really showing who you are and how you show up to problems, to challenges, to all sorts of collaboration. And so relationship management is really, really important. And I think at the core of that is making sure that you're listening to people, that people matter, not just the people that maybe you see as the gatekeepers to getting you a job, but to your peers, to how you treat the people around you, to when you're looking for a job and you're trying to find something, but that your friend or colleague is as well. Are you sharing that information? Are you looking at the world as an abundance rather than scarcity? And I think sometimes when you think, oh, there's only one job, I need to like only think about myself, it actually sets you up for failure. Whereas if you are like generous and open and collaborative, that's where you're going to find the most success. And so networking is important, but treating people in an interview the way that you treat people outside of an interview, I think is good as well. And really that relationship management is about treating others the way that you know you think people should be treated, and showing kindness and showing generosity and listening and being open to different perspectives and valuing differences, I think are really important aspects of that.
true. We're going to kind of totally switch subjects. Well, at least, yes. What is one of your favorite things about doing the live esports events?
The fans and the community that shows up for them. Having been in sports and been working in entertainment, a lot of like a lot of star athletes and actors and people who get to a certain level aren't really in touch with their regular fans. And I think in esports, like there's a lot of accessibility between the on-air casters and the pros and the fans. And the fans of esports are amazing. They travel thousands of miles to see their favorite teams play.
Wow.
And being able to go out and talk to them and see what motivates them and see what excites them and see kind of a shared love for a certain game or a shared love for the sport, is always the most fun thing. And sometimes when we're doing shows, I can sneak out of like the production truck, or like I can leave everything as it is and just go walk around. And it's really amazing just to see the audiences and the reactions and the excitement and the cheering of crowds. That's something that is really my favorite thing about doing live esports events. And it was challenging during the pandemic and quarantine, and we were still able to do events but without audience. And now that we're getting audiences back, it's just such a difference maker. It's so exciting to be able to engage with the community like that.
Hmm. Pandemic aside, what would the biggest challenge be for doing them?
Oh, like um logistics and travel and inflation and budgets and shipping and working in different countries with different regulations. And there are so many challenges, and like a lot of times we need to make pivots and move from one city to another, or like there are just very it's a very challenging space to do live events. um, we get to work with amazing teammates, and we have like teammates in other countries who really help us navigate some of those challenges. But it's always something like the power goes out, and you know, like we were just doing a show in Brazil, and we were doing it through remote production and technology, like where a production room was in Dublin, and we were doing the show in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and we had fiber connection, and it was, you know, really sophisticated technology. And some crew in Florida like sawed through a fiber line underneath the
Wow.
cement while they were doing some construction, and it created all kinds of like problems for this show that wasn't even happening where the
Wow.
problems occurred. But there are always challenges and things, unexpected things that happen. um, and it's, you know, staying on budget and doing great shows for our players is what we always try to do. But our production team is really talented, and they're really good at you know, showing resilience and showing grit and overcoming problems. But they have a bingo card that they have of like all the things that have disrupted the shows, and it can be from like giant spiders in a
Oh,
stadium to
wow.
like a shark chewing through cable in the Pacific Ocean. Like there's just like always, if you can imagine a crazy problem happening, the crazy problems happen, and then the team has to like get together and figure out solutions.
That would be a great,
But
great blooper reel.
yeah, it is, but it's also exciting because it's not like everyday normal. Like it's really complex challenges, and it is fun to try to solve them and see a team come together and rally for a shared purpose.
How large would you say your team is? I mean, obviously you're worldwide, but
Yeah. So our esports team, um, there's a global esports team, and then there are partner teams around the world. But our esports team alone um, is, you know, probably about 500 people
wow.
dispersed across the globe. And
Okay.
then we also work with vendors and partners, and so I think just for the show that we did in Sao Paulo, I think there were about 300 people working that show. Um, and that was just on the ground, and then we had people working in Dublin and working at various places. So it's a really big team, but it's distributed at offices around the globe. We have a big presence in Berlin, in Seoul, in Shanghai, in LA, in Sao Paulo. Um, and those are just some of the, you know, the major esports hubs. Um, but it's a very big team. You know, just for the content and production aspects, but
Mhm.
also for the other aspects of esports.
We are almost nearing the end of our half hour, and you have covered so much amazing advice. The communication and collaboration and listening and feedback, learning to take it. What would you say the most important takeaway is to the students in terms of
Um,
advice that you could give to any of us that are starting off?
Yeah, I think that there are like three things that stand out to me that are really important for someone to find success. Um, One is skill and capabilities, and I think that everyone on this call is talented and has skills and has capabilities and has value. And I think sometimes if someone is trying to prove their value, it's less effective in knowing inside that you have value. And instead of trying to prove your value, try to make a difference. Like if you're trying to make a difference, that's where you're going to succeed. So I think that A, like know you're valuable and know you have skills. B, have passion and dedication so that like you're going to work harder than everyone else. And it does, and it's not a competition, but like just know that you're going to show up and you're going to work hard and you're going to be committed. And if you have those two, and then the third to me is like the ability to dream, like have an imagination about just how much you can do and what kind of impact you can have that goes beyond just your daily function, but like where you want to be. If you have those three aspects to what you're doing, I think that you can be great, and you can really like find success, you know, in whatever field you choose.
You were amazing. You were such an inspiration, and I'm so grateful that you could join us today and impart some of your experience and knowledge to me and to our students. I can't say thank you enough. am so appreciative of it, and I know
Oh,
that our
yeah.
students are too. So thank you. And I
Well,
love watching the chat and seeing them kind of just recap what you're saying. It's great.
yeah. Well, thank you, Carolyn. Like, I started as a teacher, so students is something, students learning and students being able to have access to information that's going to help them is something that I'm very passionate about, and it's very meaningful for me. So it's an honor and a privilege to be able to speak to the students today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I guess that means that we're out. So
All right.
thank you, Dave.